This is Information Design and Visualization Fundamentals, an online course developed by Aquent. In this first lesson, we will begin to understand what information design and visualization is, and start to become familiar with the many forms projects within these disciplines can take. First, an introduction. My name is Graham Roberts. I'm a senior graphics editor at the New York Times, where I produce visual journalism projects for both print and digital platforms. To begin, let's talk about the format of the course and what you'll be learning. This course will be a quick and useful introduction to the field of information design and visualization. You will learn design and visual principles as well as some practical tools and resources to get you started. You'll be given the chance to create work of your own through a number of hands-on projects throughout the 6 lessons. Depending on your skill level and experience, the work you complete here could end up in your portfolio. This is not a beginner's course in the sense that we assume you are familiar with the tools of the trade, such as sketching and Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator. Information design and visualizations can be print-based as well as interactive, and I will be discussing both types throughout the course. But it's rare that a single person has all of the skills to do both. Regardless of your skill set, we feel that if you have 2 or 3 years of professional design experience under your belt, this is the perfect course for you. To help you along the way, I'll be providing homework assignments as well as a brief quiz at the end of each lesson to help you to reinforce the concepts learned. There's a forum associated with this course on the Classroom site. You can post links to your assignments as well as ask questions on the forum. Although teaching assistants are available on the forum to help you by answering questions and reviewing assignments, your best resources will be your fellow classmates. Okay, enough housekeeping. Let's get started by talking about how information graphics and visualizations are playing an increasingly important role at media outlets like The Times and others. This is for a number of reasons. While graphics have long been a part of how we communicate, the proliferation of high-resolution screens from the desk to the home to the lap to the pocket has made the possibilities for visual storytelling greater than ever before. And new technologies like high-speed internet, modern web browsers with HTML5 and JavaScript, and fast, high-quality video has changed the landscape for how we can engage our readership. Our business is to create powerful, engaging stories, and graphics play a major role in achieving this. In fact, graphics are so essential to readership now that the current record for most viewed article of all time on NewYorkTimes.com is a graphic we recently produced that used a dialect quiz to create a map that would guess your geographic point of origin in the United States. Our team has a wide set of expertise because, as you will discover through this course, information design is a discipline that spans a large set of skills. From cartography, to statistics, to motion graphics and animation, to design, to programming and web development, skills rarely covered by any single person, and so information design tends to be a highly collaborative pursuit. But while the skills required can vary widely, let's define the purpose of information design as the practice of presenting information in a structured way to effectively communicate a particular subject with clarity and efficiency. There is a near constant flow of information, which in itself can have a very inhuman scale. And so as designers, we need to bring that back to a scale of what we can see and understand. We want to design in a humanistic way that is dictated by our intended viewer, as opposed to being driven by the needs of the creator or by the data itself. In this class, we'll be focusing on information graphics and data visualization, a subset of a broader field of information design. Within these fields, we use visual communication and design skills to create clear and compelling explanations. Ultimately, all of the visualization skills mentioned should come together towards this end. So why is communicating visually such an effective way to explain complicated subjects? Well, we are a visual species, and much of our brain is devoted to processing visual information. Our minds are not very good at looking at a table of numbers and making conclusions. But take those same numbers and visually represent them, and our minds can very quickly begin to understand patterns and make meaningful inferences. In an increasingly complex and abstract world, diagrams, graphics, and visualizations help tremendously in our ability to understand. And while we can use written language to tell, it's sometimes much more effective to show, to present the evidence of a story visually. For example, I can tell you that Mariano Rivera is one of the greatest pitchers to have ever played the game. I can tell you that he is incredibly consistent in hitting certain parts of the plate. I can tell you that his fastball and cutter look very similar, but can end up in very different locations. But it's much more powerful to show you the evidence of this. That is what we did in this New York Times graphic from a few years ago. By collecting data of every pitch Mariano Rivera threw across an entire season, and showing evidence of these points through heat maps, animation, and other visualization techniques, we create a much more compelling argument about why he is so great. In successful visualizations, seeing leads to understanding, and as in any medium, it must engage, inspire, and inform us. At the same time, the way we process what we see makes for a strong moral obligation to present truth, and carefully consider how we design visual displays of information. Since a reader will more strongly encode what they see, it's important when designing that we're always very clear about what we want to convey and choose appropriate design forms as to not mislead our audience. For example, take this graphic about the US Affordable Care Act enrollment. Clearly, this graph is highly misleading about enrollment and encourages the audience to believe that there is a huge discrepancy between the actual number and the goal number of enrollments. In fact, the graphic should look like this. A much different picture of the information, I think you would agree. You have to wonder if this was simply biased journalism, since this was a highly partisan issue, or if basic rules of visualization were not understood. So, to recap, changes in technology have created a world of new opportunities for information design work. A wide variety of skills can be utilized to create this work, which can take many forms. We want to make sure we design in a way that respects our reader, whose mind is best adapted to processing visual representations of information. And, with the power of visuals, comes an obligation to be truthful. Coming up, you'll explore some of the forms that visual information design can take, as well as a survey of the types of skills required to make typical examples of this work, including infographics, charts, interactives, and more.